Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Democrats are frauds. BLM, leftist activists, all in the same category. You know, there's this idea when it comes to leftist activism where Democrats sort of adopt the plight of those they claim to represent. They take it over. There's this notion of white liberal women who seem to do this all the time, Chelsea Handler, your average academic liberal in general, where they take over and they establish themselves as the voice of the victim, and consequently, the actual voice of the victim gets silenced and overshadowed by someone with a big Twitter following. This has happened in almost each and every single scenario involving BLM. Something happens. Riots, rhetoric, calls to defund the police happen. It gets taken to the extreme. All the while, the actual family of the victims themselves are saying, please stop. This is not what we want. This is not what the victim would have wanted to happen in his name. In many cases, with the riots themselves, the actual victim, when they live, calls for peace and calls for people to stop. But the liberal activists don't actually care about the people they claim to represent. Every single time, this proves itself to be true. And in this case, we got to talk about Breonna Taylor, but more specifically, Breonna Taylor's mother, who just came out and explicitly said that Black Lives Matter Louisville is a fraud that exploited her daughter's death. The pendulum is swinging, folks. Like I keep saying, people are starting to realize exactly what's going on here, the true intentions of these Democrat activists. And it's certainly not making things better, as they've made things worse in such a short period of time and in nearly every measurable index. So let's get into it, folks. I have a great article that I gotta show you. Before we do, however, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright guys, so we got this right over here from the Daily Wire. Breonna Taylor's mother claims Black Lives Matter Louisville is a fraud that exploited her daughter's death. Tamika Palmer, the mother of 26-year-old Breonna Taylor, said in a Facebook post that the Black Lives Matter organization is a fraud that exploited her daughter's death. Taylor was ended last year when plainclothes police officers executed a no-knock warrant on her Louisville, Kentucky home. I think it's crazy. When people say they've been here since day one, let me be clear. Christopher 2 times, not sure what that means. The Montgomery family, Angie, Cherry, Tijuan, and Craig, is the one and only day ones, not to mention Breonna's friends and family, but they've never needed recognition immediately following until freedom. I have never personally dealt with BLM Louisville and personally have found them to be fraud. Atticus Scott, another fraud. Then there's the people at Injustice Square, aka Breeway, who has been 100 and held it down, but that doesn't go to say everyone down there, but they know who they are. Also, never needed recognition. I could walk in a room full of people who claim to be here for Breonna's family who don't even know who I am. I've watched y'all raise money on behalf of Breonna's family who has never done a damn thing for us, nor have we needed it, or asked so. Talk about fraud. It's amazing how many people have lost focus. Shake my damn head. I'ma say this before I go. I'm so sick of some of y'all, and I was last. Anybody who needs it, I'm with this S. Enough is enough. And yep, this is exact proof to what we've been saying forever. The actual victims in every single one of these cases don't see a dime from BLM. BLM raised over $90 million, I think, in 2020. I think that's what they reported. But where did those millions go? I haven't seen any community initiatives. I haven't seen them building schools. I haven't seen them build programs for economic and financial literacy and literacy in general. I haven't seen any rhetoric about protecting the household and forging boys into men to create a more sustainable future for the community. I haven't seen any of it. I mean, for Pete's sakes, there hasn't even been an initiative to clean up neighborhoods, to renovate homes and renovate buildings and try to make communities look healthier and happier. There hasn't been any initiative to fundraise for starting Black-owned businesses. There has been nothing, absolutely nothing grassroots fundamental that is necessary to creating a thriving environment. Nada, zilch, zero. It's just a never-ending fundraising cycle that goes to electing Democrats. And Democrats use the tragedy as a means to once again fundraise for their campaigns, get elected, do nothing, a vicious cycle, a self-perpetuating prophecy that repeats itself over and over and over again. The definition of insanity being doing the same thing over again, expecting different results. How many decades will you vote for Democrats and get nothing for it? How many decades will you donate to these grassroots organizations who fund themselves on the backs of those suffering in these environments and then do nothing about it? The 1980s were bad. The 1990s was bad. The crack epidemic and, of course, gang culture exacerbating beyond a controllable degree. Things got a little bit better in the early 2000s. It started to clean up. But then around the early 2010s, everything just switched. Some certain unsavory characters became mega famous. A certain culture of Chicago rap and all of this glorification of violence started to become really big in the mainstream. You know, as all these young kids go gang and all of this garbage. And it seems as though we're headed straight back to the highest numbers of homicides that we saw from the 1990s, right back to a self-destructive culture. The entire time you've been electing Democrats, the entire time Obama was the president, nothing got better. It got worse. It's getting worse actively. And Black Lives Matter doesn't talk about the actual issues in the communities. They don't talk about concrete solutions and community building. They create a scapegoat, an enemy, an antagonist, which is the police, which is conservatism somehow, and do nothing about the plight of African Americans. No one talks about the real issues. I gotta say one word: world star hip hop. Go take a look. I do it all the time. I delve in to update myself on what's really going on, almost in a socio-cultural, anthropologic type of study. I delve in. Take a deep dive yourself to see what's really going on. No one talks about that. In fact, I'm even paranoid to go into detail or to mention anything on this platform because you just never know. You say the wrong thing, your entire existence can be deleted by the overlords at YouTube. But really, it's time to start having these real conversations. Not even from me, but from within. Black Lives Matter needs to have the conversation. They need to start taking the actual issues seriously. But instead, they're being grifted, following people like Patrisse Khan-Cullors, who after being called out on the scandal of buying $3.2 million in homes as a trained Marxist, justifies buying the properties and claims that she's still a Marxist, or that it's still Marxist to purchase a $3.2 million real estate portfolio because she did it for her family. No, that's not Marxism. That's capitalism. You are being grifted by woke opportunists who don't even face the same problems that you do. It's very easy for Patrisse to say whatever she wants as she lives in her posh gated community. And speaking of getting grifted, if Hillary Clinton is playing the same game, then you know you're being lied to. Another child killed by police. Hillary Clinton fans the flames after Chicago street gang Latin Kings threaten retaliation for the shooting death of Adam Toledo. Hillary Clinton pretending as if she's on the right side here, even though the issues that we're seeing today were very greatly exacerbated by Bill Clinton and Joe Biden, the 1994 crime bill, and the rhetoric that Hillary Clinton herself pushed out back in the 1990s, like this.
They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
Hillary, you will never be able to run away from the quote, super predators. Never. And you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be able to just run away. You gotta be held accountable. Those in Black Lives Matter who are siphoning millions of dollars off the plight of inner city communities should be held accountable, and they shouldn't be able to just get away with it. Patrisse Khan-Cullors shouldn't be able to get away with enriching herself off the struggles of those communities. Absolutely not. Maxine Waters, same thing, who just actually said this.
And so I can understand the disgust. I can understand the feelings that so many have about we've got to get some justice in both of these cases. And so I know that my colleague speaks her mind, and she said what was in her heart. And I understand that very well. And I'm here today because, number one, I want to show that there are members of Congress who really care about what is happening with these cases and whether or not we're going to get justice, or whether or not the police unions and the lies that they tell are going to win. And so she spoke her mind, and I appreciate that, and I love her for it.
Maxine Waters promoting and defending no more policing, abolishing police forces, the rhetoric that her colleague Rashida Tlaib pushed forward, claiming that the Democrats care and they want to get justice, they want to do something about it. Maxine Waters, you have been in office for longer than I've been alive, and you've done nothing. You have nothing to show for it. The places you represent are worse off today than they were when you got there. And this is the same continual grift over and over and over again. Stop voting for these politicians who play with your emotions and do absolutely nothing to solve the issues. If people are not talking to you honestly, if they're not saying things, frankly, that are going to offend some people but really get down to the actual crux of the issue, like Jordan Peterson says, if what you're saying isn't offending anyone, then it's probably not that impactful or even worth listening to. Stop getting played by these grifter politicians, these grifter Democrats who don't have your best interests at heart. That's the moral of the story. That's also the video.